You're watching Northern Crimes.
In 1990, David Lynch and Mark Frost created a fictional town called Twin Peaks, a place where darkness lurked beneath small-town charm. They filmed their surreal murder mystery in Snoqualmie in North Bend, Washington, drawn to what Lynch described as the region's, quote, slight air of menace. Lynch and Frost thought they were creating fiction. They had no idea how prophetic their work would prove to be. Between late 1998 and early 1999, the real Snoqualmie Valley was gripped by mounting dread. Students at Mount Si High School were dying, first in car accidents, then in ways that defied comprehension. One local student captured the growing terror. "It feels like I'm just losing everybody. Our town has never experienced anything like this. It's like, who's next?" 2 weeks before the most horrific crime in the valley's history, a family dog brought home part of a human hand. It was an omen of the violence to come. On March 6, 1999, on the same road where Lynch filmed his fictional welcome sign, reality would prove far more terrifying than any television drama. This is Northern Crimes. The Snoqualmie Valley has always been a place where secrets lay buried beneath the surface. Impenetrable forests and remote logging roads have attracted those seeking solitude, both innocent and otherwise. For decades, the area served as what investigators grimly called a body disposal site. When Lynch and Frost arrived in 1989, they found something remarkable. As Frost later recalled, they'd already written their pilot when a friend suggested Snoqualmie. "We drove out there and literally found the place that we'd written already existing. It was a really weird moment of synchronicity." The show's success brought tourists seeking quirky charm and dramatic beauty, but the valley's appeal masked a darker reality. The most notorious killer to use the area was Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer. Between the early 1980s and 2003, Ridgway buried multiple victims around Snoqualmie and North Bend. In September 2003, investigators found April Dawn Buttram's remains, a 17-year-old who disappeared 20 years earlier. By late 1998, these tragedies seemed like distant memories to students at Mount Si High School, but that November, their sense of security began to crumble. On November 7th, 15-year-old Dane Rempfer was struck and killed by a hit-and-run driver. The enthusiastic freshman who loved baseball and soccer was gone in an instant. And just over 2 weeks later, another tragedy struck. David Sepanik, an 18-year-old senior and star athlete, lost control of his car on North Bend Way in the early morning hours of November 23rd. His vehicle slammed into a tree, and he died hours later at Harborview Medical Center. The disciplined wrestler and football player, whose Polish immigrant parents embodied the American dream, was dead. Mount Si High brought in extra counselors to help 1,100 students process their grief. The entire student body had been touched by tragedy, but the worst was yet to come. The house on Southeast Rennig Road looked unremarkable. A caramel-colored ranch where Annika Baldwin, 37, had raised her 3 daughters for 10 years. Salome Holly, 18, dreamed of becoming an oceanographer. Amanda, 15, was known for her humor and flamboyant personality. And Melissa, 13, was the baby of the family. Annika worked as a nursing assistant and newspaper carrier to support her family. The girls were active in school and church, but some friends noticed Amanda seemed anxious about her grades, worried her new stepfather might punish her for not achieving perfection. That stepfather was Deva Cross, 41, who'd married Annika in December 1998. Cross was largely unknown to the community, quiet with a slew of beat-up cars and a tendency to speed down the road. Cross had a complicated past. Born David Mark Watt, he'd legally changed his name in 1990. Twice divorced with children from previous marriages, his custody agreement included a troubling stipulation that he, quote, shall not consume alcohol or any other mood-altering substance while the child is in his care, end quote. On March 6, 1999, what should have been an ordinary Saturday became unimaginable. Around 8:15 a.m., Cross began a rampage, using kitchen knives to attack his new family. When deputies arrived hours later, they found bodies in 3 different rooms. Several knives were recovered. This wasn't a crime of passion. It was methodical, brutal, and calculated. But the most chilling aspect wasn't the violence itself. It was what happened afterward and why one family member survived. 13-year-old Melissa was sleeping in the top bunk when screams from the living room awakened her. Through the chaos, she heard her mother ask, "What are you going to do? Kill me?" Amanda hurried to lock their door, but footsteps approached. The door flew open. Cross stood there with a knife raised above his head. Melissa watched in horror as her stepfather stabbed her sister. Melissa pulled a blanket over her head during the attack. When she looked again, Amanda was crying for an ambulance, but Cross just stood there in the doorway. Melissa pressed a damp washcloth against her sister's thigh wound before Amanda passed out. Cross ordered Melissa to shower. She stood under the water for what seemed like an hour, terrified he would come in and kill her, but also afraid to get out. What followed was 5 hours of psychological torture. Cross watched television, home shopping, basketball, even chuckling at movies. 2 bloody knives lay on the dresser. When Melissa tried to grab the remote, he struck her in the face. Most disturbing was how calm Cross appeared. He smelled of alcohol and talked casually, complaining about Melissa's sisters and professing love for her mother, speaking about them in the past tense. Cross carried Melissa to the kitchen for champagne, ordering her to shut her eyes so she wouldn't see the blanket-covered bodies. She could tell he was stepping over things as he walked. Finally, Cross fell asleep. Melissa ran to a neighbor's house, then to a friend's, where she knew about a hidden key. When the friend's family returned, they immediately called police. Deputies found Cross sitting on his bed, calmly smoking a cigarette, surrounded by 3 bodies. The haunting question, why had Cross spared Melissa? He'd methodically killed 3 family members and held her captive for 5 hours, yet he let her live to become the key witness against him. When students arrived Monday, March 8th, they walked in quietly, many in near silence. The school had lost 2 students in car accidents, and now 2 more were murdered in their own home. Students wore butterfly clips like Amanda had, a tribute to the girl adored for her kindness. Counselors and chaplains helped process the unthinkable tragedy. Cross was charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder. In October 2000, he pled guilty in exchange for life in prison. But Pierce County prosecutors filed separate charges seeking the death penalty. At sentencing, Russell Sang, father and grandfather of the victims, addressed Cross. "You've committed the most heinous crimes imaginable. You've taken the lives of 3 beautiful and defenseless girls." Cross's courtroom behavior was as disturbing as his crimes. When given the chance to explain his actions, he simply said, "I think I would like to fire my attorneys right now," then made a circular motion indicating he wanted proceedings wrapped up. In October 2002, Cross was sentenced to death by lethal injection. The sentence would later be commuted to life without parole when Washington abolished capital punishment. The legal resolution couldn't erase the trauma. While tourists continued visiting Tweed's Cafe for damn fine coffee and cherry pie, locals installed better locks and looked over their shoulders constantly. The fictional evil of Twin Peaks had been entertaining. The real evil was terrifying. "15 years after the Cross murders, the valley thought it had moved past its darkest chapter. But on February 12, 2014, tragedy struck again. A man walking near Kimball Creek Bridge made a heartbreaking discovery: a newborn baby girl abandoned on the roadside. Her umbilical cord was still attached, wrapped in a Target bath towel and chickpea burping cloth. The King County Sheriff's Office launched an investigation into baby Kimball Doe. Despite extensive efforts, including releasing photos of the distinctive towels and offering rewards, no one came forward. Valley residents created a memorial at the site, a wooden hut protecting flowers, toys, and gifts. The memorial grew to include 14 stuffed animals, a homemade doll, and a wooden cross with a Bible verse. But even this act of remembrance became a target. The memorial was repeatedly vandalized, thrown down the hillside. Someone left a note claiming they didn't want to be reminded of death on their commute. Yet each time it was destroyed, community members rebuilt it. "The Snoqualmie Valley doesn't forget stuff like that," said one volunteer. The memorial's targeting was particularly cruel, given that other roadside memorials, including David Sepanic's, remained untouched. In 2023, baby Kimball's Name Us profile was quietly removed, indicating she'd been identified, but authorities withheld her real name and circumstances, leaving incomplete closure. Today, tourists still flock to the valley, seeking Twin Peaks' quirky charm. They pose at the welcome sign and eat cherry pie, mostly unaware of the real tragedies that unfolded here. Lynch and Frost created a fictional world where evil lurked beneath small-town normalcy. They thought they were crafting entertainment. Instead, they'd created a documentary. Reverend Marty Benedict worked at Salish Lodge during Twin Peaks' premiere and later served as chaplain for emergency services. His church parking lot was used for the 2017 revival filming. He presided over baby Kimball's funeral and counseled cross-murder families, witnessing both fiction and reality intersect. Prosecutor Mark Lindquist described a self-perpetuating myth. Once a place becomes known for certain crimes, it attracts more of the same. The valley's proximity to Seattle, dense forests, and remote roads made it ideal for those seeking to hide evidence. For residents, the history is inescapable. They drive past baby Kimball's site, the Cross House, accident locations. Beauty intertwines with tragedy. The haunting question of who's next still echoes. It's born of trauma, but also recognition that in a place where fiction and reality blur, vigilance is the price of safety. The Snoqualmie Valley is a place of beauty and darkness. The forest that witnessed Ridgway's crimes, the Cross Massacre, and countless tragedies continue growing. New trees rise where old ones fell, but secrets remain buried, some of them deeply. Scattered memorials remind us that behind every statistic is a human story. Dane Rempfer, who loved baseball; David Sepanic, the disciplined athlete; Annika Baldwin, the hardworking mother; Salome Holly, the aspiring oceanographer; Amanda Baldwin, who made everyone laugh; and baby Kimball, who never had a chance. Melissa Baldwin carries the weight of that terrible night, but also the strength that allowed her to escape. Her courage ensured justice and that her family's story would be told. Lynch's fictional Sheriff Truman once said, "There's a sort of evil out there, something very strange in these old woods. Call it what you want, a darkness, a presence." Whether that darkness is supernatural or human remains an open question. What's certain is the valley's story continues. New families seek the American dream. New students attend Mount Si High. New visitors seek Twin Peaks' charm. And somewhere in those woods, in shadows between trees, the valley holds on to the unknown. Some secrets have been revealed through investigation and tragedy. Others remain hidden, waiting for the right moment to emerge. The Snoqualmie Valley remembers its victims, honors its survivors, and watches the forest for what might emerge from the shadows. In a place where fiction became reality, where evil wore ordinary faces, the story continues.